Video games allow people to live out their sporting dreams, explore other worlds, complete puzzles for hours on end, and more. But video games aren't just fun. They raise serious philosophical and ethical issues, some of which are reviewed here. The typical concern for ethics is how we treat other people. While harming other people is wrong, video games generally don't involve harming any real people, yet they raise ethical issues nonetheless. For example, many video games contain extreme violence, such as brutal killings, that would clearly be wrong if performed in reality. While some people find killing in video games morally problematic, most people don't. Many people would, however, find child abuse and other sadistic crimes to be wrong, even when only in a video game. But if virtual murder is okay since nobody is actually harmed, why isn't virtual child abuse also okay since nobody is actually harmed? Conversely, if virtual child abuse is unacceptable despite harming nobody, why isn't virtual murder also unacceptable? Most people don't want to say that virtual child abuse is benign, or that virtual murder is as bad as virtual child abuse. But how might these judgments be justified? First, we may note a difference in the typical motivations behind the two actions. Players usually want to kill in video games not because they want to actually murder anyone. The desire to virtually commit child abuse, however, often derives from wanting to actually commit child abuse, making this action bad in ways that virtual killing is not. Distinguishing the moral status of these actions by their motivations, however, does suggest that it would be okay if someone committed virtual child abuse without any desire to commit actual child abuse, a consequence many would find unappealing. We can avoid this consequence by identifying the moral difference not in motivation, but instead within the actions themselves. For instance, virtual child abuse, like virtual racism or sexism, targets individuals using the same criteria for which actual individuals are targeted and harmed, victimizing a child because they are a child, or a woman because she's a woman. Enjoying such actions comprises a lack of sensitivity towards these actual victims. Virtual murder, however, is often represented very differently from actual murder. The victims are usually just random and nondescript. They aren't killed because of anything in particular about them. So our actual moral standards may only condemn virtual child abuse, but not virtual murder. But perhaps, contrary to common intuitions, both are indeed wrong, or maybe neither are. The Aesthetics of Videogames concerns philosophical issues relating to video games as art. One core question is whether video games can be artworks at all. Some argue that video games are interactive films, and so, like films, are art. Whether video games are art or not, we do engage with them differently from traditional artworks. We are involved in the experience of the game. We often play as a player character, controlling their actions and what happens in the game. Some claim we imagine that we are the player character. Alternatively, perhaps the player character acts as our proxy in the game world, a person or object, who acts on behalf of the player. Either way, we clearly are involved in playing video games in ways we usually aren't for experiencing other artworks. Another difference from other art forms is video games' lack of directives. Philosophers of music ask what it means to perform a piece of music. Whether if I make a few mistakes, I am really playing the piece I claim to play. Video games, however, often have no explicit directive for how to play. One question, then, is whether we can ever fail to play a video game. Some argue that we can fail to play a video game by speedrunning it, that is, trying to complete it as quickly as possible. All artworks have a prescriptive frame, a way they are meant to be encountered, and video games are usually not intended to be speedrun. So when players speedrun a video game, they arguably aren't playing the game they claim to be playing. But if they aren't playing the game, then what are they playing? A final issue is the metaphysics of video games. What makes something the same video game despite significant changes? Do virtual objects exist? These metaphysical issues matter legally for copyright purposes, and for whether virtual objects can be stolen. One position, called formalism, holds that games are identified by their rules. If you change the rules of chess, it wouldn't be chess. We can similarly identify video games by their rules, their algorithms, and code. The trouble is that code frequently changes, with patches fixing bugs and altering the power of weapons and characters. Intuitively, it doesn't seem that each patch produces a new game, just as football wasn't a distinct sport prior to the offside law. One suggestion is that we instead see games like chess and Call of Duty as family resemblance concepts. They have many different instantiations in different mediums, but with no set of rules common to all instances. Another metaphysical issue is the existence of virtual objects. The Supreme Court of the Netherlands ruled that a robbery took place when two boys coerced a third into relinquishing a virtual sword in RuneScape. The court reasoned that the sword was of value to the assailants, and hence stealable. But this is puzzling. How can we steal virtual objects which don't really exist? One answer is that virtual objects depend upon certain props. Physical objects like bits and bytes on silicon chips. So virtual objects can be stolen, as domain and control of these props can be removed unlawfully, which is theft. Alternatively, others argue that virtual objects do exist as digital objects, which can themselves be stolen rather than their props. The ethics of virtual actions are becoming more pressing with the development of virtual and augmented reality technologies. The philosophy of video games can help answer these ethical questions and the aesthetic and metaphysical issues on which they depend. Video games aren't just fun, they're philosophical.